Last night, I found out my parents were twins and I don't know what to do anymore. Also, they technically don't exist in the US. Trigger warning, incest with some sexual details. Last night, my mom, 62F, along with my 37F, husband and kids went to his sister's house for Easter dinner. This was my mom's first Easter without my dad, both originally from Germany, who died in 2021, and of course, it's been a hard year for all of us. My parents would have a big Easter dinner every year by themselves and my family would alternate going over their house and my husband's family. My mother drank wine with my Mill, and his other female family members and was having a great time. She got drunk and when the night winded down, I told my husband I'd drive my mom to her house. She drove, as I was sober, and that he should take the kids home. When we arrived to her house, my mom, who was very drunk, drunker than I'd ever seen her, asked me to stay and talk with her. She was missing my dad, so I told my husband that I would stay with her for the night. She then started to go into their relationship, which changed my world completely.
Follow for part 2.
Last night, I found out my parents were twins and I don't know what to do anymore. Also, they technically don't exist in the US. Trigger warning, incest with some sexual details. Part 2. She confessed to me that her and my father were twins. They were always inseparable, as twins are. When they were young teenagers, they started masturbating together, which led to them masturbating each other, which led to full-blown sexual intercourse. They lost their virginities to each other at the age of 15 and fell deeply in love and were a secret couple. At around 17, they realized that they would be outcast if found out, so they broke up. But it's hard to break up when you live in the same house and see each other all the time. So they'd continue to have many sexual encounters when they could, and if their parents were out overnight, they'd cuddle all night with each. They would date other people, but always cheated on their so's with each other, to the point where they felt guilty and broke up with their so's to set them free. She said at age 22, they came to the realization that mixing their incredible twin bond with lust and romantic feelings killed their chances of being able to happy with anyone else. No matter how great the other people were, nothing would compare to the love and passion they had for each other. They devised a plan, and started saving every penny they earned from work, barely spending on anything besides bare necessities for a year. They bought tickets to come to the US. They had one last birthday dinner with their parents. And then the next day, took off together. Neither had seen or spoken to their family since. I'm not gonna even try to explain in detail the next part, as it's very convoluted, but in essence, they were able to get fake documents where they kept their first names and changed their last names to something more American, which worked, and they never were looked at suspiciously by anyone. They got a cheap apartment when they arrived and both got jobs using fake resumes. I'm not sure how all of this worked so flawlessly, but it did. They were even able to open bank accounts and everything, which I assume is fraud. Basically, they never technically existed in this country. They bought each other rings and had a celebratory wedding with themselves, and I came a couple years later. My mom became a Sam and my dad picked up another job to provide. He got promoted a few times at one of the jobs which started paying very well, and was able to drop his other job. Then life went on.
Follow for part 3.
Last night, I found out my parents were twins and I don't know what to do anymore. Also, they technically don't exist in the US. Trigger warning, incest with some sexual details. This whole thing changed my world. So much started to make sense. I would ask about my grandparents, and both said they were dead. I never thought anything of it. Grandparents die sometimes, you know? Both seemed to have a falling out with the rest of their families, and them being each other's rock made them fall deeper in love. Made sense to me. They told me and everyone else an entirely different backstory to how they met. On their birthdays, which was obviously the same day, I'd sometimes jokingly call them twins, and my dad would put his hands up and say, "You've caught us red-handed," to which I would laugh, but my mom and dad would laugh hysterically together before continuing on with whatever was going on at the time. Also, they have the title of being the most in-love couple I've seen to this day. They were always very affectionate, and showered each other with praises and professions of love constantly for my entire life, without any time off. When I had my first boyfriend at age 17, he came over once for dinner, and later he told me, "Your parents made me wonder if my parents even like each other." I've had numerous other friends tell me that they looked like a new couple who are in the honeymoon phase. That's a perfect way to describe how they were. A couple in a never-ending honeymoon phase. It actually affected the way I had romantic relationships for a while, but I had to get therapy and now I'm in a healthy relationship that's amazing. When my dad died, my mom had a complete breakdown and we put her in a psychiatric hospital because we were afraid she'd genuinely commit suicide. She is still depressed, but has now begun to grieve in a healthy manner and is slowly moving back to normalcy. I'm not even sure how I should feel. Part of me thinks that I should just get over it. They were amazing parents, and although it's highly weird and gross, it didn't change that they were my parents and how good they were to me and each other. But the other part of me is terrified at how my reality has changed. How everything I thought was normal was the exact opposite of normal, and that everything was manipulated for me along with everyone else to see something that wasn't there in order to hide the real truth. I don't know if my mother remembers the conversation, as she was very, very drunk, and has gone about life normally. I have no idea what to do.
If you liked my content, follow me for more.